Why not? Well, in an effort to not let this get too out of hand, lengthwise, do you have any like final things you'd recommend to anyone getting into this? Ways to kind of build their audience, build their tribe, you know, quickly and easily.
All right. So I'd say one, really establish how it is, really establish your own identity, not just for a particular project, but also for how you present yourself. So that way people know exactly what they're getting every single time you're working on something, whether you're dropping your latest, sword and sandal escapade or you're coming out, swinging with a noir piece. Establish a very distinctive, very definitive brand for yourself. Um, always be on the lookout for every opportunity you can, not just to advertise yourself, but also to engage with people honestly, to show that there's a person behind there. That it's not just some crazed lunatic up on the mountaintop writing these pages and flinging them out all over the place. Just get down there and just be with people, really engage with them. And I'd say particularly with doing I wouldn't recommend anyone doing something as crazy as what I'm doing, because to be honest, you might have to be a clinical psychotic to do the kind of mass production I strive for with not just 365, but with all my projects. Uh, but consistency counts above all else. Not just a consistency of brand identity, but a consistent level of quality. Set the goals for yourself. Set, this is the time I write. Or if you don't feel like writing, this is the time I plan. Or if you don't feel like planning, this is the time I start advertising and start, putting myself out there. And also, the other thing too is don't balk at any opportunity, aside from the ones that look like absolute get rich quick schemes. This is specifically in terms of magazine writing, but there's a tendency I've seen with some people to kind of like turn their nose up at things such as writing for, the trad pub magazines, the stuff that's still around somehow, like Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction or, Analog. But my recommendation really is to, oh gosh, I lost train of thought. No, it's back on track. Those are magazines that pay good rates, and, you know, there's I'm sorry, I'm like flubbing this horribly right now. I'm flubbing this horribly right now. Yeah, no, this is the part I'd say please cut. For God's sakes, do a fade, do a fade. My point is just write and submit to as many magazines as you get your hands on, because whether they pay a penny a word or they pay a dime a word, that those are not only stories you could possibly swap around, edit, get into different places if they get rejected, but sit and say to yourself this: I write 10 stories, I send them out to 10 magazines, they all get rejected, I do revisions, I swap them around, they all get rejected again. You just wrote 10 stories. That's literally an anthology. You could bound those together and publish them on Kindle or Lulu or whichever. There are always ways to turn these things around. And so, the worst case scenario, you wind up having to go the full self-publishing route. But best case scenario, you just sold a story for a dime a word. That's not money to turn your nose up against. And it's another way to help kind of support you.
From what I've seen, so few of those are like exclusives. It's just like, hey, this is fit or not, and you still retain the rights to do what you want with your story. So absolutely. At that point, it's almost like getting paid to advertise.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, in the way, too, people might be like, oh, but who's reading them? And I'm like, I don't care if they can afford it, if they like the story and they buy it. At max, I wait a year and then I bound it in an anthology where it'll probably get more eyes read on it. Honest, that you have to always look at every opportunity and look at the opportunities therein. And that's kind of what I've been doing, not just with 365, but with Quality Candor, with the stuff I've been doing with Anvil, with the stuff I've been doing as a composer. you sink your teeth on almost anything you can get your hands on. And that's really kind of, one, that's the way you learn best, is by doing. There's the old Ray Bradbury phrase, I defy you to write 52 bad stories in a row. It's impossible to be done. And there's enough, if you give yourself enough avenues to cut your teeth on, the better and better you get, the more likely your stories will start to sell. And moreover, the more interested people will become in the products you're hawking. And that goes for everything. That goes for music, that goes for film, that goes for, even if you're trying to just do the YouTube thing, even if you're trying to do like the essays or the videos or whatever, that still counts too. Because you're building up your awareness, you're building up your brand, and you're building up a consistent, identifiable voice, which in such a sea of content is very, very important. I like how weird 365 is, because when compared to a lot of things in the space, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb no matter how you look at the damn thing. And absolutely. But yeah, so I guess the big things I'd preach to anyone is define yourself, define your brand, be as consistent as you can be in that voice, in your work, and be as rapacious about producing and promoting and engaging your work. And another good example I will say, and this might be a good thing for me to kind of round out the spiel on, cross promotions. I did a cross promotion with Kitsun Chi, who's a wonderful Singaporean author who's been writing wonderful fiction, fantasy science fiction, just a terrific pulp author. I hopped on his Babylon Black campaign, which the fellows at Tuscany Bay Books also did, which included one of Declan's book. I believe it was two of Declan Finn's books. I think it was the first in his Tommy Shaw series. I think it was his first in White Ops. And I made a cool $70 off that cross promotion, which might not sound like, oh my God, you're not rolling the greens. The truth of the matter is, you're not going to make big money at the outset. No one does, unless you're, exactly, But the point is, that's still, when you stack that win on top of, say, making money on the music with semi-frequent sales or people who are buying into the paid subscription, everything starts to build up. So that's why I say almost take every opportunity you can. Because cross-promotion is also a nice way to build brand awareness. Chia's audience is now being exposed to 365. And if I'm, going out of my way to say, hey guys, I'm doing this with this brand. People come over, they take a look and say, oh my God, he's working with kids and he's working with this guy who has this beautiful looking book. And then it all trickles down to the guys at Tuscany Bay Books as well, who I'm sure when they hawked it to their audience, they're coming over saying, what's this 365 thing? Or who's Kitsun Chi? And so there's these various intersecting paths that happen with the cross promotion. So I think that's probably the one thing I'd also recommend, is that a lot of authors maybe band together when you're doing the kind of Kickstarter Indiegogo thing and kind of have your works coming on as, as add-on perks. Because it's a nice, it's maybe not lucrative, but it's a good way to build that awareness and also to help put more money towards the project.